Mr. Chairman, the meeting I've started the recording for both our recording plus for the YouTube, so it's going out. If you'd like, I'd go ahead and give the instructions. You're muted, John. But I assume you told me to go ahead and do that.
Yeah. I did, Mr. Chairman. I want to note that Mr. Russo is having trouble connecting. I just sent him the link. So if there's anything you can do to resend him the link.
Here he is.
Is he on?
Yep.
Good. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Neese.
All right. So tonight's meeting is a virtual meeting of the township. As we've been doing in the past, we've been taking comment one of four ways. You can give comment in the drop box. There's a blue drop box at the front of the building at the main entrance, and someone can leave comment there. I did check the drop box just momentarily, just a few minutes ago, and there was nothing in the drop box, just so that you know. You can also make comment by raising your hand virtually, either through the phone or if you're on the screen. There's an option to do so. If by chance you're having trouble on either one of those getting your hand raised and you want to make public comment, or if you just want to give written public comment, you can send public comment to publiccomment@newtowntownship.org. Again, that's public comment at newtowntownship.org. Public comment is one word, as is Newtown Township. Remember that if you're sending in public comment or requesting to make a public comment and you're having trouble raising your hand, you need to let us know your name and address in the email. And if you're having trouble, you need to indicate what your screen is showing up as who you are, whether it's a name or a phone number. We need to know that so we know who to allow to speak. So those are the ways that public comment can be made. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. The board was in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss three potential legal matters. So I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Mr. Neese to call the roll.
Mr. Nawn.
Present.
Mr. Partridge.
Here.
Miss Roberts Lightcap.
Here.
Mr. Russo.
Here.
Mr. Altieri.
Here.
Your solicitor, engineer, and I believe special counsel are all here. And so is your manager.
I'll entertain, we have before us tonight's agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda or consideration of any changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve this evening's agenda as written. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Hearing or seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We do have one written comment this evening. Oh, I'm sorry, I should do a moment of silence, I guess. Here I am, not even paying attention to my own agenda. For a moment of silence tonight, I'd like to keep in our prayers the family of Matthew Zork. As you know, Matthew was a 7-year-old from the area that had passed away last year about this time due to complications from the flu. He is behind, or the honor blue for Matthew is because of him. So you see all those blue lights around and things like that. That is for Matthew Zork. So if you could remember his family in our prayers this evening. Thank you. We have one written comment this evening that was received prior to this meeting. And as soon as I can find it here, I'll read it. This is a public comment from Sarah Mitros at 16 Walnut Street. Ms. Mitros has comments regarding the John Samar zoning application. The zoning application was denied by our board and eventually appealed by the applicant. And our board decision, zoning hearing board's decision to overturn it or to deny it was overturned by Delaware County Court of Common Pleas. Given that fact, in her written comments, Ms. Mitros lists a number of things which she believes were not proper with the written confirmation, the application of denial. At this point, there's nothing the township can do. We were not a party to the original legal action, therefore we can't do anything. Again, in her email, she notes that the township's written confirmation, well, the township doesn't have any written confirmation. The zoning hearing board of Newtown Township has written confirmation. And again, just for the benefit of everybody who's listening, that we need to understand that the zoning hearing board is a separate governmental body with their own solicitor from the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors. So there's nothing that this board can do. If Ms. Mitros, if you feel that there are additional actions that could be taken, or if you feel that the zoning hearing board should appeal the denial, the overturning of their decision to the next court, which would be the Commonwealth Court, then you really need to take it up with the zoning hearing board. There's nothing, quote, the township can do. Ms. Mitros also discusses some concerns about road dedication, which I think is a little bit premature at this point, as there's been no offer of dedication or even no land development plan to associate with this application. So that was the only written comment received. At this time, I'll entertain any other comments for agenda items. Again, this is if anybody has a comment on an item on the agenda that they'd like to make, now is the time to speak. Raise your hand and be acknowledged. Otherwise, we will move on with the meeting. I see no hands raised. So we will move on. You'll have an opportunity to comment on things not on the agenda at the end of the meeting if anyone so desires. So under item 8, minutes, we consider approving the minutes from the February 8th, 2021 meeting. I trust everybody's had a chance to review those. I'll entertain a motion for approval or consideration of any changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 8th, 2021 meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve the minutes from the February 8th, 2021 meeting as written. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have a resolution recognizing Arbor Day, Resolution 2020-08. Mr. Altieri, would you like to read that resolution?
I would, Mr. Chairman. So resolution number 2021-08, resolution for Arbor Day. Whereas trees reduce the erosion of our soil, mitigate stormwater issues, improve the quality of our air by producing oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees in our township increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business districts, and beautify the entire community. And whereas Newtown Township wishes to recognize the value of our splendid trees in Newtown Township, to celebrate the role of trees in our lives, and to evidence our community's support of them. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the supervisors of the Township of Newtown, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, in regular session assembled on the 22nd of February 2021, officially recognize Friday, April 23rd, 2021 as Arbor Day, and proclaim that it shall be celebrated in the township by a community planting of trees and shrubs in which all are encouraged to participate on Saturday, April 24th, 2021. Resolved this 22nd day of February 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to approve resolution 2021-08 was made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any further questions or discussions on the resolution? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have an item to appoint boards and commissions. As everyone knows, at our last meeting, we accepted a resignation and authorized the advertisement of a vacancy on our Environmental Advisory Commission. I believe we received some applications and did conduct some interviews. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Russo, I believe, or Mr. Altieri to.
I'd like to nominate or consider approving Dane Shoemaker to fill the position of the unexpired term for the Environmental Advisory Commission expiring 12/21/2021 22.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve the appointment of Dane Shoemaker to our Environmental Advisory Commission for a term expiring 12/21/2022. Mr. Russo, I believe you did interview Mr. Shoemaker and found him acceptable.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Any questions or discussions on this motion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Schumacher. I see that you are on and listening. So Mr. Neese will be reaching out to you in the near future to get you set up. Welcome to our Environmental Advisory Commission. We look forward to your service. All right, next on the agenda, we have reports. Some of our folks here are in attendance, I think. We have a report from our police department, our police chief, Mr. Lunn. I don't know if Chief Lunn has any additions. If not, we'll move on. I don't see his hand raised, so. Next is a report from our fire department from Chief Everlof. Chief Everlof, if you have any further additions to your report, please indicate and raise your hand. I see none. We have a report from our emergency medical services, Chief Laws. I don't think Chief Laws is online. We have a report from our public works director, Mr. Sharretts. As I understand it, Mr. Sharretts is currently plowing snow. So we hope to do that, and we think that's a far better thing to be doing right now. We have a report from Mr. Redcheck. I don't believe on codes. Very detailed report. I don't believe he's online right now.
He is.
Oh, he is. Is any Andy, do you have anything to add to your report? If you do, please raise your hand. His hand's not going up, so we'll move on. We have a report from our finance director, Mr. LaFiata. Rich, if you have anything to add, raise your hand. Does not. We have reports from our library director, Arlene Caruso. I don't see her online, but Arlene, if you are online, if you have anything to add, please raise your hand. Nothing. We have a report from our township engineer, Eileen Nelson from Stantec Engineering. I guess the question, Eileen, do you have anything to report?
There's not a whole lot of change from 2 weeks ago, other than the drainage investigation draft reports should have been provided in Dropbox form electronically for the board members. And we're still trying to work through getting information on the Clearbrook culvert to know what we have to work with or what requires repair. All the other things pretty much remain the same.
We did receive the draft drainage reports, and I know I'm looking through them. I understand many of the board members are. So does anybody have any questions for our engineer? Seeing none, we'll move on. Report from our township manager, Mr. Neese.
Excuse me, John.
Hi, Mr. Russo.
Clearbrook culvert. I'm understanding from several residents in that area, Eileen, that the pavement was never done over the top of the culvert. Is that correct?
It has not been final restored yet, no. That
So
would be
how
done.
how come we're only holding $2,000, 2,000 and change?
Actually, it's 7,000 and change. The 2,000 is just the retainage for what has been completed. So if you look at the,
And that's enough money for them to come and sweep the street up where all the stones are all over everybody's front yard? They're gonna
yes,
take that with when they come back in the spring and when the weather subsides?
yes,
Okay. Thank you.
welcome.
Any other questions for our engineer before we move on to our township manager? Okay. Steve, you're on.
Yes, I have a couple quick things. One is we received a notice of termination from Marple Township related doing our health inspections. We are in the process, I believe later on the agenda, it asks for your approval to do an RFP to replace the health inspector. We're in the process of putting that RFP together, but we'd like to go ahead and also get it advertised. So that's on your agenda a little bit further down. But we do have 90 days for that, and we're working through that process with them. They will continue to serve in that way until the 90-day period is up. I received a letter today, or the township received a letter today, it's addressed to me, from the county, that they're notifying us that the county council intends to establish a property assessed clean energy program under, I guess it's a act under the PA Act 4301, with the entire county defined as the district for the program, including our municipality. The program will allow energy efficiency and clean energy products for agriculture, commercial, and industrial properties only to be financed through a loan that is repaid as an assessment on the property tax bill, allowing long-term loans for these projects with lower monthly payments. And I bring this up just because the county hasn't acted on this yet. They plan to act on it at a future county meeting if the board wishes to take a position one way or the other.
Can we punt that, and not punt that, but can we give that to the Environmental Advisory Council to look at as well? Especially since they have a meeting, I guess, on Monday, just in case they have anything that they want us to do for the next meeting following theirs.
We can sure do that.
That's a great idea, Supervisor Altieri. Steve, if you could send it around to all the supervisors too, I think that'd be helpful.
Yep,
Yep.
we can do that. Sorry, I'm just making a note so I make sure I do what I need to do. All right. I believe everything else that I have, Mr. Chairman, is further down on the agenda. I do have some further explanation of a few things, but that's the things that I have at this point.
That's great. Does anybody have any questions for our manager?
I do. I have two. The first one is the memo that we got from BPG that this board requested, I guess, about a month ago, related to AmeriHealth and the lighting and the poor landscaping.
Yep.
That memo, I understood it to be that it was addressing not just the building, but also the parking garage.
I think that's correct.
Okay, so I have seen a difference. Now, I don't live right next to it, but when I come out of my street, and when I let the dog out, I can see that the lights are off, in the building themselves, but it looks as if the parking garage is still extremely illuminated. So I don't know if you know whether they've implemented the changes that they said that they were going to do, or if you have an idea of when they were going to start implementing those changes.
I believe the parking garage has some technology that has to be added that was not there in order for the implemented changes, because I don't know that they intended to I believe the parking garage is going to go onto some motion sensors, and those were not installed in part of the original program. And so they're in the process of ordering those and getting those put in.
Okay. Can I just ask you to follow up? Because as we've learned with this group in particular, we really have to kind of stay on top of them to get answers. They'll give answers to other people, but they don't seem to give answers to us, which is a whole nother can of worms. So if we can just figure out when that's going to be. And I know that they say that they're going to be doing more studies in regards to landscaping in March and April, just kind of keep the feet to their fire on that one. The last question that I have, Mr. Neese, is the paper road policy. Do you have an estimate of when we will be voting on that?
It's before you for any changes or corrections, and then whenever you're ready, we can put it on as an action item to be voted on.
Okay. So then I would just ask that everybody review it and put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
I have no problem with it going. That's fine. We should include it on the next agenda then to get it off our table.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I have a question. Mr. Neese, where are we with the portable speed bumps? And are we going to ready to implement a plan to start installing them here in early April to start testing our need for them? Several residents in Echo Valley Lane have questioned me on that, and I said I did not know where we are with the policy.
Well, the policy's been in place. It's a
Well, not the policy,
traffic calming policy, but
the procurement,
Yeah,
I'm
the
sorry.
procurement. Sorry, I was cutting you off.
No, that's a procurement. I meant procurement.
Okay, yeah, the procurement has been made. I do not know exactly when they're going to be delivered. I can find out, but I do know that the order has been put in. One of the things that they had asked us is how we wanted them. I guess there's arrows that go on them, and we're supposed to tell them what direction we wanted the arrows. That has been done, and my understanding is that they're moving forward with the order. I do not have a delivery date, but I can find out.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Neese? All right, moving on. Next on the agenda, we have a request for transfer of $23 from the Newtown Township consolidated account to the escrow account. Money was deposited into the consolidated account, but was in fact escrow account funds money. Would anybody like to offer a motion regarding item 12.1?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 12.1. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is payments. One item, item 13.1, is to consider approving the pay request number 1 from Moore Construction Services totaling $55,398.49 for the Clearbrook culvert replacement, holding $2,915.71, 5% as retainage. And this is as approved by the township engineer. I will note that in the payment request, there's still a balance outstanding in addition to the retainage of $7,629.51, which I think we've already discussed. Would anybody like to offer a motion on this item?
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve item 13.1. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda are the bills. We have 4 items involving the bills. I'll read them. We could probably take them as one motion. I had the opportunity before this meeting to review the bills. So my motion would be to approve the bills on check register A 2020 dated February 22nd, 2021 in the amount of $1,626.33. Next would be approve the bills on check register D 2020 invoices dated February 22nd, 2021 in the amount of $9,562.60. Third would be approve the bills on check register B 2021. These are for invoices dated February 22nd, 2021 in the amount of $264,163.29. And bills on check register C 2021 dated February 22nd, 2021 in the amount of $483.35. And that is my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have 2 land development issues. The first one is for number 18 Clover Lane. Is there anybody present online representing Clover Lane?
Ask them to raise their hand, please.
Yeah, please raise your hands. Well, besides Rick. Rich is the only one that's hand raised. We want to let Rich talk.
I will here in just a second if I can find him. Oh, there he is. Hello, Rich. And Mr. Wills.
Oh, Mr. Wills, okay.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Wells, are you online? Can you identify yourself, please?
Jay, you're on mute.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Yes, great. My name is John J. Wills. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with an office here in Delaware County. And I represent the developer for both 18 and 20 Clover Lane that is presently before the board for consideration this evening.
Okay, we're going to take them one at a time. If you want to present your case on 18 Clover Lane first, that'd be great.
Well, I have a copy of the resolution that was prepared by Mr. Sikori, waiving the land development requirements for this particular property. This is simply the placement of a storage shed to the rear of the property. The storage shed will be approximately 150 square feet maximum. There will be no utilities run into the shed. There will be no occupancy to the shed, human occupancy to the shed, other than the storage of miscellaneous equipment to be utilized by my client's business. I've had an opportunity to review the proposed resolution for the board's consideration this evening. And I do have one request, that is condition number 3, whereby the board is suggesting that the curbing be added to the front of the property, ostensibly to assist with storm water management issues. It would be my client's considered opinion that the placement of a 150 square foot storage shed to the rear of the property, approximately 100 feet from the property line, or strike that 100 feet from the street line, will have no appreciable effect on stormwater management issues. Therefore, we're suggesting respectfully a waiver of that proposed requirement. Other than that, Mr. President, we are in full concert with the proposed resolution that is before the board this evening.
All right, let me do it this way then. 18 Clover Lane. Clover Lane is the street that comes off of Westchester Pike, and this is for the benefit of everyone listening, including our attendees. Clover Lane is the street that comes off of Westchester Pike at the Starbucks. 18 Clover Lane is the first residential property adjacent to D&K Appliances. Am I correct, Mr. Wills?
I believe so, sir, yes.
John, if I might, it's actually the last 2 properties on Clover Lane are 18 and 20.
Do
So
we have a plan that we can put up, Mr. Neese? Because obviously,
Yeah, I'd like to see a plan too.
I'm not sure the representative of the applicant is prepared to go through this process. So,
And while we're waiting for that, was that resolution shared with everyone? Because I don't have a copy of it in my packet.
I have it, Lynn.
Mr. Altieri, it is on our agenda. It is
I
part of
believe
the
it was
agenda.
added today.
Resolution was?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm looking.
I'm looking at the agenda or at the resolution right now as part of the agenda.
Yep.
Mr. Wills, what is 18 Clover Lane presently used for?
Basically, a commercial business, basically a commercial office space.
And this is an existing non-conforming use on the residential lot, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And then I think Clover Lane is, to use the term dead end or no outlet type street, correct?
That is correct, sir. It's my understanding 18 and 20 are sort of back at the sort of at the cul-de-sac. That is correct, at the end of that particular street.
That-
Mr. Nawn, I don't think they're non-conforming in that. I think these are zone commercial. They look like residences, but it's actually zone commercial.
You might understand that nobody lives at 18 and 20, 18 Clover Lane?
Yeah, there's no one residing in there.
Okay.
That is correct. For the record, both those properties are zoned C1.
Okay, that's fine. What-
John, so I just went online again. I'm sorry to go back to this, but I want to read that resolution and I don't see it online. I'm talking about the resolution.
Lynn, if you go to item 18.2 on the agenda and click on it's rated 18.2. It's down below you gotta go all the way to the end. That's where we list the resolutions.
It was sent out this afternoon,
Well,
Lynn.
So,
That's another issue with the continual additions at the end, but okay, I got it now.
Okay, good. Mr. Wills, what business is it DNDN involved in?
Yes, my client owns approximately 12 McDonald's franchises here in Delaware County. He is also, him and his wife are residents here of Newtown Township as well.
Okay. What is the use of the shed? What's the proposed use of this 150 square foot shed?
Simply miscellaneous equipment and inventory that's being utilized by my client's business. Originally, they had proposed a 240 square foot shed. As a result of a decision by the zoning hearing board, the size of that shed was reduced from 240 square feet to 150 square feet.
well, everything I have, Mr. Chairman, shows 240.
Well, I think that's the plan that was up there, shows 240 also.
Well, I mean, I don't understand. So your client's saying he doesn't want to fix the curb in front of his property that's going to improve stormwater, but he wants to add the shed. And is there a reason for that?
Yeah, we believe the 150 square feet shed, the placement of a shed to the rear of the property has no appreciable effect on stormwater management issues whatsoever.
So you mean to tell me when the water comes down and hits his shed, it's not increasing the impervious coverage on this property?
It is increasing the impervious surface coverage on the property by 150 feet. Understand?
Oh. I mean, I guess, how long has your client owned this property?
He's owned it since, I believe, 2017.
So, okay, so then he bought this 3 or 4 years ago. And my question is, why wasn't he putting the curb in when he bought the property? Because you do understand, if you're a resident, you have to fix the curb. It's broken or missing in front of your property before you sell. So now he's saying he didn't do it then, and now he wants to add impervious coverage, and he doesn't want to do it now. I mean,
Well, I think that's a misnomer, sir, to say that he didn't want to do it back when he purchased it.
well, you're asking for relief. You're asking us for relief.
Yeah, if I could please finish. I don't think there was any requirement when he purchased the property back in 2018 that he install curbing. If that was a requirement for a use and occupancy permit, I suspect he would have done it back then.
Well, you do realize that every resident that buys a property here, if the curb's damaged or broken, it could be 5 feet, it could be 100 feet. They have to fix it. So
Yes,
he has no curb here. He has no curb here. He wasn't, for whatever reason, required to put the curb in 3 or 4 years ago. And now he doesn't want to put the curb in now. He just wants us to give him permission to put the shed in. Is that what you're saying?
Again,
I assume that's what you're saying.
yeah, I don't want to be argumentative, and I suspect
Well, I mean, I don't know why you guys would not want to improve it to help with the stormwater flow on the street. I mean,
yeah. I
you're
guess,
using it as a business. It's used as a business. You're adding material. You're adding an increase your footprint on this property to be utilized for your business. I mean, I don't understand the problem.
okay. Sir, I disagree respectfully, with your premise that the.
Okay, you can disagree. It's your right.
Okay, may I finish, please?
Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
Okay, yeah. May I finish?
Yes, please.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, it just, our position again, that the placement of a shed more than 100 feet from the street line behind this property, again, this property is between 1/5 and 1/4 acre, that 150-foot storage shed, basically a 15 by 10-foot storage shed that you'd see in many residential districts throughout Newtown Square, we don't believe that has any effect whatsoever on stormwater management issues. And there
Well,
we are requesting, and again, that is simply a request, that the curbing be waived. Certainly, if it is the position of the township that the curbing be installed, we will certainly comply with that.
Mr. Wills, your plan was prepared by Thomas E. Hall and Associates. Is Mr. Hall or anybody from his office here to offer any comments regarding the need or absence for this curbing?
There is not, Mr. Hall is not present this evening.
Okay. Have you reviewed the township engineer's letter dated 11/17/2020?
Yes,
Are you willing to comply with all the items in that letter?
I think that was the letter before the issue of the the formal land development requirements would be waived for the placement of the storage shed.
Okay.
Correct. That was the original, there was a land development application that was submitted and reviewed by both Stan Tech and the Planning Commission.
Yes, that is correct, yes.
Subsequently, when it was determined that he had to go to zoning and get zoning relief in the form of either a variance or a special exception, and there was a controlled process, the request was made to then waive the land development requirements, since it would be a shed of 240 square feet or under. The zoning board determined that 150 square feet, which is more consistent with the residential guidelines or the residential dimension restrictions, was appropriate. The applicant agreed to that. So this is in the form of a waiver of land development because it was relatively de minimis, considering there's no utilities or anything being applied to it. If he didn't get a land development waiver, there would be a number of requirements that would have to be associated with this as if you were building a new building. That's why the singular condition of additional work that had to be done, being the curbing, was added. It didn't seem to be that big of a condition that was recommended by the Planning Commission. It's something that we've had issues with in other communities, at adding these bumps and curbs. So we felt that that was the time to do it with a waiver of land development.
Well, and I don't disagree. I guess according to the engineer's letter of November 17th, there was a requirement for a soil erosion and sedimentation control permit, I think. And I don't know that this board is actually waiving that, though. Am I correct? Silence.
Well, I want to know why he didn't update the plan to be correct and show the 100-foot shed. He's got a 240-foot shed shown. I mean, I don't understand it. In any town I work in, you bring back the plans revised.
Well,
I mean,
because this was a waiver, this is not being recorded. We didn't require that.
So are we going with 150 or are we going with 240? Because the agenda says 240.
No, the resolution says 150.
The resolution says 150. The agenda says 2. I'm just trying to clarify for myself.
Yes,
From the applicant's perspective, this is a 150-foot square foot shed.
the request that was originally made with the land development application was 240. When it went to zoning, they made the restriction of 150. The the resolution, proposed resolution, if you were so inclined to waive land development requirements, limits it to 150.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. As I read this, it looks like the planning, this was before the planning commission on, let me find it again, here we go. On November 24th, 2020, they had recommended the waiver. This was before zoning on Thursday, this past Thursday, and it was approved at the 150 square feet. Now, both the resolution and the action memo from the planning commission note that curbing as required by Stantec to address stormwater runoff. So I guess let's get the township engineer here, if she's still here. And perhaps Eileen can shed some light on this and tell us what's needed as far as curbing.
We have not evaluated the need for curb at present. That was why the resolution was worded the way it was.
Okay.
And if I can clarify, the size of the shed had nothing to do with the curb requirement. The stormwater conveyance along the frontage of the property is what is of concern for the installation or potential installation of curbing for both this and 20 Clover Lane.
So what?
The 150 square foot shed or even a 240 square foot shed on an individual lot would qualify for an exemption of stormwater management.
Okay.
I do believe that while Mr. Willis requested a waiver from this provision, because, understanding he didn't think it was directly related to the shed, I believe he has stated here this evening that they would accept that condition, even though they requested it be waived. Am I correct, Mr. Wills?
Yeah, that is correct.
And that's how I read, and as I read your resolution, it throws it to the township engineer that curbing must be added to the front of the property as directed by the township engineer. If the township engineer doesn't direct the installation of curbing, doesn't feel it's necessary, then obviously he wouldn't have to put it in. But by agreeing to this condition, then if our township engineer does want curbing, then they would have to put it in. All right. Any other questions from members of the board on this particular application? If not, I guess I'll entertain whatever the pleasure of the board is. If somebody wants to offer a motion to approve resolution 2021-10, that's fine. If not,
I have a motion, John.
okay, go ahead.
Okay, resolution number 2021-10, waiver of subdivision and land development approval for 18 Clover Lane storage shed. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Newtown Township hereby resolves that the DN's request for a waiver from subdivision and land development requirements is approved subject to the following conditions. 1, all applicable permits necessary for the construction of the shed must be obtained. 2, the storage shed must comply with all conditions as imposed by the Zoning Hearing Board's special exception approval, including but not limited to that the shed may not exceed 150 square feet. No utilities may be run to the shed, and it must comply with all setback requirements. 3, curbing must be added to the front of the property as directed by the township engineer to assist with stormwater management issues. 4, compliance with all other township ordinances and regulations. 5, should any future applications for permits or land development be submitted for this property, the dimensions of the shed that is the subject of this waiver shall be included for purposes of cumulative calculations for determination of stormwater management requirements and other similar purposes. Resolved this 22nd day of February 2021 at a public meeting of the Board of Supervisors town. And that's my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve resolution, hang on, let me find it, 2021-10, waiver of subdivision and land development for 18 Clover Lane storage shed. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board regarding this particular resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. With regard to the curbing, is that before or, I mean, is there a timing on that? If there's determined to be curbing there or not? I mean, it's kind of open-ended, and if that's the case and the engineer does deem that that curbing should be installed, is there a time factor that's involved with this? If they don't do it when they install the shed, before they install the shed?
I would imagine that would be a certificate of occupancy issue. If they don't comply with all the agreements in the resolution, they wouldn't get a CO to use the shed, but I can defer to Mr. Sikora on that. I don't know if
That's
Rich.
correct.
Say it again, Rich?
You're correct.
Okay, so if the engineer says they need curb and they don't put in the curb, then they don't get the.
No. The curb is read in the resolution. The curb is in. If this resolution's approved, the curb's going in. If not, then I want the resolution rewrote.
Well, it just.
This resolution says to me, we're putting the curb in. That's what I seconded. If that's not the case, and Eileen's gonna decide later she doesn't want the curb, then I'm not accepting that.
Well, but that's what the resolution.
It's not, I don't even know how it goes to the zoning board last Thursday, and it comes with an incorrect plan on a Monday night. Not even a week, like the next 2 days, business days later. That's impossible in any other township in this country other than our town. It is very frustrating. He doesn't have an updated site plan with the correct dimensions. Any other town would be thrown out. We just accept everything here. I'm not happy. This is not the way we should be doing it. We should have a correct plan with the correct dimensions. We should, and if he doesn't want to do the curb, then let him go to land development. I really don't care. This is
Mr.
ridiculous.
Russo, we're waiving the plan. He wouldn't have to produce the plan if we're actually waiving.
No, John, this plan here shows a 240-foot shed. It's not correct. This plan is being presented as an exhibit. It is not correct. This plan should have went back and had his architect redraw it. But again, that costs money. So they don't want to spend the money, and they go to a hearing on Thursday night and they're here 2 nights later. That doesn't happen in Lower Marion, Radnor. I've done all business there. It takes months to get on. He doesn't even get through zoning. I don't even know if the resolution's written from zoning, and he's already here 2 days later. That's unbelievable. It's ridiculous, actually.
As for the curbing, as read by Supervisor Partridge, it says the curbing must be added to the front of the property as directed by the township engineer. So if Eileen decides curbing's not necessary, there's no curbing going in. So if you'd like to withdraw your second, that's fine.
I am withdrawing my second.
Okay. So Mr. Russo has withdrawn his second. So we have a motion on the floor to approve resolution 2021-10 made by Supervisor Partridge as read, and we've all seen it. So would anybody like to second that motion?
I'll second the motion for discussion reasons.
Thank you, Supervisor Altieri. So the motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Altieri. Discussion, questions on the motion?
Not necessarily on the motion, just on the resolution. Eileen, so to kind of highlight Mike's question and to see if we can kind of come to maybe not a resolution, but for you to shed some light on the concern that I think a couple of us have. Would you be able, looking at this now, do you know whether it is likely that you will be requiring curbing or not?
From my view of the site, that one of the issues that I have is that the plan as presented did not provide elevations.
So let me ask you this question, Mr. Chairman. With Supervisor Russo's concerns about the plan being presented and with the engineer referencing at least one issue with the plan as presented, I don't know if the others feel that it would be appropriate, but maybe we table this until we get the required exhibit per normal engineering standards.
Well, if we're going to do that, then I would suggest that we simply deny what's before us is a waiver of land development. If we want a new plan with the elevations and grades, then we shouldn't waive land development. He should be required to go through the land development process so we can discuss and see the elevations, see the proper size sheds, see the proper curbing and everything like that. We shouldn't be waiving a plan or waiving an application for land development if we're asking for things to be added to on a plan for land development. So we're kind of asking for two different things. If we truly want to see elevations and stuff like this on this, then we shouldn't waive this. We should deny this motion. He gets denied, then he's got to go through the land development process. And Mr. Russo will then get the plan that he's looking for. Eileen can then make a judgment call on the curbing. And we all know exactly at the end of the day what we're approving.
Or you could simply just require the curbs be put in, period, and take out.
And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to revise my motion, John, to require the curbing. So I'm going to curbing must be applied to the front of the property, and I'm going to remove
In accordance with township.
in accordance with township. Go ahead, Rich. In accordance with township.
Code.
Yep. Township code. So I'll read number 3 again. Curbing must be added to the front of the property to assist with stormwater management issues in accordance with the Newtown Township Code. So that's my revised motion.
And can I just make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Well, hang on for a second, Mr. Wills. Mr. Partridge has made a change to his motion as written. Mr. Altieri, is your second still good?
My second is still good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Wills.
In light of the concerns raised by some of the board members, the applicant will consent to the curbing along the front of the property, and the applicant will further consent that no permit should be issued for the construction of the shed until the curbing has been completed, installed, and approved by the township.
Are we all good with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Any further questions or discussions of the members of the board on this particular motion?
Well, I'm going to make that installed, inspected, and approved by the township engineer. I don't think anybody wants to come back to the board for this particular issue for pictures of the curbing.
As long as it's installed, that's fine, I think.
All right. And Mr. Wills, can you just confirm then that assume if this is granted, the formal request for land development is withdrawn, so we don't have to deny that now?
Yes, that is correct.
And you'll confirm that in an email to me. Thank you.
Yes, yep.
Any further questions or discussions on this particular motion as read by Supervisor Partridge and adjusted by our special counsel, Mr. Sikora? Everybody understand what we're approving here, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of approving resolution 2021-10, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, that was easy. All right, on to item 15.2. This is consider approving land development application for 20 Clover Lane for the addition of a 499 square foot room and deck to the existing structure in the C1 zoning district. Now, we're not waiving, we are actually approving land development according to the action memo from our planning commission. This was heard by the planning commission on 11/24/2020. Stantext review letter was dated 11/12/2020. This was approved unanimously, or the land development plan was approved unanimously by the board on, by the planning commission, I'm sorry, 11/24/2020. Mr. Nice, do you have a plan that you can put up for us? There we go. Mr. Wills, I take it the use of this property is the same as the use of 18 Clover Lane as a business operation?
That is correct, sir. Commercial office space consistent with the C1 zoning.
And this is for DN's same business venture as owners of various McDonald's throughout Delaware County?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Have you reviewed the engineer's letter of 11/12/2020 and agreed to comply with the letter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you wish us to ask questions, or do you want to explain what's going on with the proposal first?
Just very briefly, simply that this land development application concerns the construction of a 499 square foot building addition with a deck to the rear of the property at 20 Clover Lane. This is simply a one-story addition. I have reviewed the proposed land development agreement. My client is in agreement with that proposed language. We are not suggesting any amendments or waivers thereto.
Now, just based on our last discussion, the board may want to, just to short circuit all this discussion, may want to revise item, where is it, 13, or I'm sorry, this is 2B on the page 3 of the resolution that says that 2B section 14834A related sidewalks, as there are no other sidewalks on the short non-through street, but that is provided curbing is added per the direction of the township engineer to help manage stormwater flow. We may want to revise that to say thou shalt provide curbing or something of that nature. Perhaps Mr. Sikora can give us better language as he did on the last one.
Roger.
Any questions from members of the board on this particular application?
I just have one question for Eileen.
Yes, sir.
Is this all new? Is this 190 or 182 and the 499 all new
Yes,
coverage? Is he putting any kind of stormwater?
there will be, based on the simplified approach, which is required between 500 and 1,000 square feet of new
Is it-
impervious. There
Is
will
it
be,
typical? Is that something his architect can design, or does he have to get an engineer for that?
his architect can design it. The simplified approach in the ordinance is very formulaic. There's tables to use to size facilities and sample details provided.
Okay. All right. So have you worked with him on this? So I mean, he's going to understand how to do this. So we know
Yes,
that you're gonna go over this with them and they're gonna get it done right. Okay.
yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Russo, the first point of the resolution, the draft resolution, says that he needs to comply with the engineer's letter, and the engineer has comments in the letter regarding stormwater management. So essentially, by passage of this resolution, the developer is agreeing to comply with the engineer's direction regarding stormwater management. So,
Okay, great.
Now, the only issue that I have, and Eileen, I don't know if you've gotten an update, the only thing that was not completed, the zoning, the parking was resolved via zoning. There was some adjustments made because of the pre-existing configuration of the lot and the pre-existing configuration of the building. But handicap parking is required. That was not depicted on the plan. To the extent that, and the applicant, it's a condition that they have to provide for that handicap parking. But the handicap parking also requires a special area for loading and offloading, and that's marked off. If, to the extent they have to add impervious coverage, that may trigger a higher stormwater requirement. That would be triggered by township code, just as if land development wasn't happening. That stormwater requirement exists, whether or not this would be in land development. Eileen, has there been any updates, or Mr. Wills, has there been any updates to what I'm saying?
There has, and that's why I know I spent a good amount of time today speaking with the architect about the stormwater requirements and the parking space, having the 8-foot van accessible gore area.
Meaning that it's going to be provided, it's
Yes.
in this resolution to be provided, but if that triggers a higher impervious coverage, it'll automatically trigger the higher stormwater requirements.
Yes, but I know that it doesn't trigger anything over 1,000. It's still simplified.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
any other questions or comments on this particular application? Would anybody like to offer a motion regarding resolution 2021-11 or any other action?
I have one if no one else does.
Go for it, Ed.
Okay, resolution number 2021-11, preliminary / final land development Approval, 20 Clover Lane, RRAD Toronto LLC, 499 square foot building addition and deck. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Newtown Township hereby resolves and conditionally approves the aforementioned application and plan, subject to and conditions upon the following. 1, the applicant must comply with the following. A, the comments and recommendations of the aforementioned Township Engineer Review Letter dated November 12, 2020. B, any conditions of the zoning hearing board decision granting parking relief, including providing 10 spaces of 10 foot by 20 foot, one of which must be created by creating garage parking in the existing garage, which will not be subsequently modified to change it from the parking area without zoning board approval for a further reduction in parking or the addition of additional outside parking with township approval. C, one of the parking spaces must be handicap compliant with associated gourd offloading area. D, any addition impervious coverage beyond that set forth in the plans will be required. Stormwater management controls pursuant to township ordinance, and any impervious coverage added by these plans will count towards any calculations of any future projects on the property. And E, installation of curbing at the direction of the township engineer.
I've changed that to section 148.34A related to sidewalks, as there are no other sidewalks on this short non-through street. However, curbing will be required for street frontage.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, 2. The following waivers of township ordinances are granted. A, section 148-12 to allow for preliminary and final plans to be considered as a combined submission. B, section 148-34A related to sidewalks. This is what you, Rich, related to sidewalks, as there are no other sidewalks on this short non-through street. Curbing is required to be added to help manage stormwater flow as per Newtown Township Code. Rich, are you okay with that?
That's fine.
3, approval is conditioned further upon. A, the applicant will pay a fee in lieu of recreational lands per township code in the amount of $1,374.65. B, the applicant must obtain any necessary permissions and enters into the relevant agreements with and pays the required fees to Newtown Township, Delaware County Municipal Authority. C, applicant will comply in all respects with all applicable township codes, ordinances, and regulations, as well as any applicable county, state, or federal regulations, and obtain necessary sewage planning approvals. D, applicant will post financial security and execute a developer's agreement and financial security agreement and post financial security pursuant to the MPC and Township Code in form satisfactory to the township solicitor and township engineer prior to applying for or receiving permits. E, preliminary/final approval is contingent upon all payment of all outstanding professional fees, escrow replenishment within 45 days of approval, except as properly challenged in accordance with the MPC. And F, the township manager is authorized to execute all agreements on behalf of the township to comply with this resolution. Resolved this 22nd day of February 2021 at a public meeting of the Board of Supervisors. And that's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve resolution 2021-11 as modified, which is the preliminary final land development for 20 Clover Lane. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Wills.
Yes. Thank you to the board members, and let me say, if I may, I have worked extensively over the past couple weeks with Special Counsel Sikori and Engineer Nelson. this board is being well served by the level of expertise and professionalism that these two bring to the table. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Mr. Wills. Your comments are well taken.
Yep. Have a good evening. Stay safe and be well.
Okay, moving on to new business. Item number 1, 16.1, consider approving a proposal from URDC to do additional grant writing for Greer Park. Mr. Neese?
Yes, so I believe you're aware that when we did the proposal for grant or for the Greer Park master plan, we added into the proposal, well, the consultant added into the proposal $4,000 for grant writing, which they intend to do to DCNR for park rehabilitation and development grant. And we've met with DCNR and discussed that grant. In addition, we've discussed with DCNR another potential grant that's available. This grant would be a riparian buffer grant. And we've also talked and found out that there is a grant from DCED that was potentially related to this project, as well as one from National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. So in order, obviously they had put fees in to write a single grant and not the additional grants. So I did get a proposal. We met with DCNR late last week. I did get a proposal today for URDC, which is the group that is doing the Greer Park master plan. For $3,000, they would write the riparian buffer grant. For $3,500, they would write the PADCED grant, and $3,000 for the National Fish and Wildlife grant. There is one comment in the letter that I received from them that I would have the solicitor review. It says these fees are less than actual cost to develop these complex grant applications. We do this in anticipation of continuing our partnership with the township through subsequent development phases. I just want to make sure that there's no binding thing there. I don't think there is, but I would have the solicitor review. I would have this passed contingent on the solicitor reviewing the letter and not binding the township beyond the $9,500 of those 3 grants or additional grants, if the board chooses to have them do so. This would allow us, so just so that you understand, the DCNR grant is up to a max of $250,000 roughly. The riparian buffer is a minimum of $50,000, and then DCED and National Fish and Wildlife, we believe would potentially match the other 2 grants. If we were able to get all 4 grants, we potentially would be in a position. We would probably still need some other funding, but it would be significantly less. This project is definitely going to go over $1 million to do what's there. And we do have some dollars set aside for this project. We've set aside some money for the dam removal or repair. If you recall, we've been putting that money aside every year, roughly about $300,000. And we've also set aside about $75,000 to help us with some playground equipment. So we do have some dollars set aside for this, but I believe if we could get all 4 of these grants, we potentially would be matching against one another, and the township would be out potentially just the cost of engineering in the process.
Mr. Neese, so there's 4 grants that they're going to apply for. Is that
Yeah, so one grant was included in the master plan, the
Right.
$4,000 to write the DCNR grant. So
And do we
that
know where we are with that?
they are in the process of writing that right now, even though we haven't finalized everything on the project. We've met with
Okay.
DCNR. DCNR's only requirement would be that we would have finalized by the time we go to them. And I believe that's an April 15th deadline.
And these other grants that we would go, they're gonna charge us another additional $9,500 in addition.
That
to
is correct.
So they're $13,000, $14,000. Do these other grants prohibit, like if we get the DCNR grant, are we then would DCED not look at this project because we've already received grant money?
My understanding is DCD would probably look more favorably upon it because we would be having money coming from another source to help assist with this. That's my understanding from the DC. I know the DCNR said that. It's very common that you apply for both. In fact, if you recall, when we did the grant for Greer Park master plan, we actually went to DCNR and DCED to get the funding to do what we've done so far with the master plan. So, and DCED usually only requires a 15% match, where DCNR requires a 50% match. The only thing is, my understanding is that DCNR on the park rehabilitation does require 4 sources of funds. And so we're looking at potentially National Fish and Wildlife, as well as the riparian buffer grant. And if they were to require additional funding, then the township may be required to come up with some of that funding. We may be anyhow, the grant dollars may not be enough to cover everything, but we're writing the grant, so as much of it as possible can be offset by one another to get as far down the road as we can.
So these additional grants help us they kind of feed off of each other, so to speak.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Neese? Again, Mr. Neese, per your comment, I would want to make sure that we're not binding ourselves to future engagements with URDC. Not that we don't like them, but we just don't have the ability to engage them in future work unless we choose to do that. So.
Right. That's why I would like the engineer just to, the solicitor to review the letter. But like I said, we got it late today and I have not had a chance to get it over to him yet.
Okay, and just one other thing, the Greer Park Steering Committee, they are comfortable working with this group, right?
Yes.
They're the ones that work well together.
I believe that they are definitely comfortable. I've had no reason to believe that they're not. They've been very complimentary of that process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they've gone. Am I muted? They've gone above and beyond. URDC has gone above and beyond for the master plan. Quite frankly.
So you're good with this, Ms. Supervisor Altieri?
Yeah, I'm completely fine with it because, as Tina alluded to, or Steve alluded to, the steering committee has been very happy with the collegiality and also work product that has come out of URDC.
Would you be willing to offer a motion?
I will make a motion to consider approving the proposal from URDC to do additional grant writing for Greer Park.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. If we could, I just want to make sure that we add the contingency per the review and approval of the township solicitor.
Len, would you also add the cost of $9,500?
Yeah, do you want me to make that all again, John, Mr. Chairman, or are you fine with just having it?
I think we all understand what the motion was. So everybody in agreement with that?
Yes,
sir.
So I'll take that as a yay from everybody. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Neese, you'll take care of that with the solicitor?
I will take care of that with the solicitor.
All right, next is consider approving the replacement of the door access system at a cost of $65,000. Wow, Mr. Neese.
Yes, so we put a access system in on the building.
Right.
Since that access has been in, just after the warranty period went up, we have lost already 6 doors in the police department that have not worked, and 2 doors up in the administration area. The concern is in all cases, when the doors fail, they fail open, meaning that we are unable to secure the area. We have had to take parts from one part of the building to put into that for particularly areas where the security is an issue, i.e. the cell block area, and some areas in the police area for that. And then in addition, without going into a lot of detail, but our 2 of the doors upstairs that are considered secure areas have failed, and currently 1 of them has failed open. The parts are becoming harder to get. They're not being manufactured anymore, which is making this a problem of obsolescence. And when we do get them, we've continued to have problems. And in fact, we've ordered the part for the 1 door, it's been put in, and it's continued to fail. We have 2 doors in the police department right now that are also not working. We've spent $11,000 so far fixing just the doors that we have fixed. And I'm having a hard time justifying continuing to spend $1,000 or more per door just to get the parts and then additional money to have them installed.
How do we find this vendor? Where did this vendor come from? This is a new system that was put in when we renovated the building a few years ago?
It was part of the bid process.
And this vendor's out of business now?
The vendor's not out of business. The vendor comes and is glad to service the failed part. And but we receive a bill not only for the part, but also typically it's about an average of about $1,500 every time they arrive on the scene to fix the door.
We have no recourse to the contractor or the architect or anything like that?
We've reviewed it. We don't see anything. My concern partly is that we continue to have these fail, and I've got doors that are left unlocked, obviously. And we have looked into it, but my understanding is it's past the warranty period, and I don't believe we have any other stance to take. I mean, we can continue to review it from a legal standpoint, but we are past the warranty period.
What are you proposing? Are you proposing essentially the same exact type of door, or?
It is not. It would be using Delco Solutions has come in with a solution that it would basically they would replace our entire system and put in new equipment that's newer and that they would service, and they would do it under a CoStar's approach.
Was the existing doors now, is this like a common issue, or is there something in terms of wiring that's burning them out in the township building? Like are doors of the same make and model burning out? Do you know in other areas in which they're installed outside of this township?
I do not have a confirmation on that. I do know that the assumption has been made, and I say assumption, and I've talked to some outside vendors who are not the vendor that's provided this to us, that because that part is no longer being made, they believe it's probably a problem with the part.
So you mean to tell me we spent probably that or more on the original system a few years ago, and now we're going to rip that out, new system in, and the vendor and the manufacturer aren't making these parts to replace this? I mean, I know systems like this are in buildings for 20, 30 years that just did normal maintenance. They never did a total gut rehab. I don't know. It seems to me like we got to sell a bill of goods.
Yeah, but I think at this point that we don't really have a choice. I mean, we have areas, I agree, Mike, this never should have happened, inferior products.
Well, I want to
Never-
know if we're going to buy this new system, what kind of warranty we're going to get. I want to know 3 or 4 other places that you can check that actually use this system, and they should be able to give you a history. These companies service their own product. They should be able to give you a history if they do it for Radnor, if they do it for Lower Merion, whoever else they do it for, so we can see a history.
I can tell you this system, I mean, one of the reasons we're willing, I'm even presenting this to you, this particular
It's a
company and this particular system are in the school district. The school district is using them. I know that they are in other township buildings as well. The owner of this company is a township resident. And I would believe, and I can tell you, he has done work here at the township at no cost to help us out through part of this process.
Steve,
And-
is this the system that's in the Gauntlet Center also? That
I don't know the answer if it's in the Gauntlet Center. I would assume it's probably in the Gauntlet Center since I think it's tied to the school district building. But I don't know that I can say that for sure.
Mr. Neese, this might be a really simplistic and naive question. Do we need a system like this? Can we just go back to the old fashioned keys?
The problem is some of our doors are actually not keyed
Okay.
because of the way the system was put in. And so we do not, some of our doors don't even have keys at all. They're key card only.
Who spec'd this system?
Excuse me?
Who spec'd the system that was installed in this? Because I recall when we did the renovation that the system was a problem from the beginning. But who, was it an engineer? Was it electrical engineer? Who?
So the architect had brought in an electrical engineer that inspected or spec'd the system, but the specs were general.
Uh-huh.
They did not specifically give a system. And part of the challenge for this particular product or this piece, the company that bid it and put it in for the electrician it fell under the electrical part of the product of the project. The company that bid it and put it in has been sold three times since it's been installed. And so not that they're not, I mean, they'll come out and service the product,
Right, but they charge us.
but like I said, we're paying close to $1,500 every time they come out and change a door. And every time we have a problem, that's what the charge is. I mean, it starts at that. I mean, very rarely is it less than that.
Steve, when was because obviously new guy here, but when was the renovation completed? When were these, how old are these doors?
The ones upstairs are probably 2017.
Oh my gosh.
And then the ones downstairs, I believe, were 18.
Well, the one follow-up, and I was muted when Ed was asking the question, but the system that it sounds that Delco Solution is going to be putting in, based on what you said, Steve, to answer the question when Ed asked if they're in the school district or where they are. They're at the Galton Center, the high school, Loomis and Culbertson. And they have been in place at the high school since the renovation in 2010. And as far as I know, from when I was on the board, there was no issues with them. And in the areas where the minor issues that there were in maybe the administration building, apparently it's a very easy system to work on.
Yeah, Len, I discussed this with our board member for leisure services when they were about to do the work, and I think this system, was, they did a lot of investigation, and I believe that the system that was put in at the Gauntlet Center was was of a superior quality. So
Yeah.
if it's the same system, I would, and at this point, I don't think we have too much of a choice. I would offer a motion unless some board members want to get more information and table it till next meeting.
No, I think you said that right, Ed. I mean, I don't think, I mean, we're kind of in a rock and hard place. We can continue to sit here and go back and forth about how it's ridiculous that they're failing after only 3 years. I think we all can come to that conclusion and agreement, but we got to come to a solution as well. So, sitting here, I don't know legally whether there is any recourse for us, really. I mean, I guess you could try to make some arguments for it. We'll leave that to Rich and to Joe, but I think
I don't think there is, Lenny, about legal recourse. If I recall, because I think Steve had me a little bit involved in the bidding process with this one particular low bidder, and it's unfortunately government's in that situation where we're required to get, the lowest responsible bidder, and when you don't have any reason to say someone's not responsible, this bidder was, if I recall, significantly lower than the next one. And I think Delco Solutions bid on it as well, on part of the project. But,
They did, but it was not this part.
not this part. Yeah, they lost on something else, right?
They did. They lost on the AV part.
Right. But
How
I
quickly is
recall
this-
it's one of the problems.
How quickly can this system be installed?
I've not asked that question. He would obviously go as quickly as possible so that we can get, I'm concerned about some doors that we continue to have problems with.
I guess my take is that regardless of what the issue is as far as recouping any money from this, and at Joe's point's well taken, I'd have to think that any legal action that we want to take might equal or exceed the cost of how much we're looking for in the first place.
Yeah, probably.
Anyway, it's a lot of money, but at the same time, if we have to go legal route, it's not a lot of money. So, I think Mr. Altieri and Mr. Partridge had nailed it. And one of them, I think, wants to offer a motion on this. Then maybe that's what we should do at this point.
I think Ed did, and I'll second it.
Yeah. So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so the motion is to, as I understand it, is to approve the replacement of the door access system at a cost of $65,000 with Delco Solutions. Is that how everyone's understanding of the motion? All right, any
Yes.
further discussions and questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 16.3, consider approving the purchase of a replacement snowplow at a cost not to exceed $10,000. Mr. Neese.
Yes, so par for the course this year, we've been pushing a lot of snow. I believe I did send you an email that we had a snowplow that had broken. We are moving forward with that replacement, but really need the board's approval officially for that.
And this is a snowplow that if we were to get rid of the truck that it goes on, could be used for other trucks, correct?
That is correct. It would at least fit 2 other trucks and potentially a replacement truck if we stayed with the MAC.
All right. Any questions on the item we're being asked to approve? Would anybody like to offer a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve item 16.3. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And Mr. Neese, I'd like to add that kudos to our Public Works Department and George this year and Harry. They've done an amazing job keeping the streets passable and drivable. I've been very impressed at how they've handled the snow this year in spite of COVID and everything else. So please extend our thanks to them for an excellent job. Well done. Well done.
I will do so.
Item 16.4, consider authorization for the issuance and advertising RFP for the replacement health inspector. You heard Mr. Neese say earlier that Marple Township has ended or intends to end within the next 90 days or less the providing health inspector services to us. So we got to go out and get our own.
So moved for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve the authorization for the issuance and advertising RFP for replacement of a health inspector. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 16.5, discussions about the request to install a stop sign in the Echo Valley neighborhood. And then there is a letter attached. Mr. Neese, can you shed more light on this? Or do you need to?
I mean, the only thing I would say is I believe this needs to go through the, traffic calming policy process.
So why is it on the agenda then today?
It was
That's
asked
what
to
I
be put
was-
on the agenda, I think, by a board member, and that's why it's there.
Okay,
Stop signs, though, I don't know, would that fit under our traffic calming agenda, or is that just?
we had to
something
do that before. We
Yeah.
had to do that in the avenues before.
Right?
It had to go through the traffic calming.
Yep, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Tita's right.
Well, we need to expedite this. This can't be like the speed bumps. I mean, there's a lot of little kids in this section where he's talking about. There's at least 6 families with little kids, and people come flying through there, and there's no stop sign on any of the 3 sides of the intersection. And I brought this up about 10 years ago when I first moved in here. And I got to be honest with you, I've never been in a town with so little stop signs. And whatever the policy is, we have to expedite. We have to understand and get our people to expedite.
So do we-
Before someone gets hurt, there's tons of trucks. Today alone, the Amazon guy drives around 7 days a week. Several times a day, these Amazon trucks are coming through, FedEx, UPS. I mean, it's crazy. And then plus all the people that live here.
Let me,
And these roads aren't that wide with snow.
Steve, do you need action to initiate the traffic calming from the board?
hold on, I just have a question before.
Well,
you-
it's just a question. You're saying you don't?
I would not, it's now that we have a letter, yes. I can.
Okay, all right, that's, sorry, Lynn. Good.
So just because before I was on this board, had an issue with First and, I don't know if it was First and Malley or First and Morton.
Kirsten Morton.
Yeah, so I guess that's the avenue that you're speaking of, but
Yeah.
my understanding with that was there was no one went around and got a petition like we normally would do with the
Right.
traffic calming speed bump policy. Instead, it was like this long, quite frankly, I thought ridiculous process where we had to get the police had to review it, the township engineer had to do a study to put up a stop sign. And quite frankly, I felt like I was given, and again, I wasn't on the board at the time, and not like it changes any, even when you're on the board, but I feel like this is one of those things where we're complicating something that doesn't need to be complicated. The speed bumps make sense to me because we're putting an obstruction in the road. And when you drive on the road, you have you're essentially expecting a clear road. But I feel like a request for stop signs is, again, something that we don't need to make so convoluted. So I see Mr. Nawn shaking his head in agreement. I don't know if he wants to add something on some sort of solution that we can get where we're not, because, where we're not prolonging this, because let's face facts. Yes, we have the traffic calming policy, but residents don't want to do that despite the concerns that they have because of how lengthy it can be. And I get it. When we're putting in an obstruction on a road, that makes sense. I don't disagree with that. But for a stop sign, I don't know why we need to make it such a convoluted process.
Well, we don't. And I guess I'm going to disagree with some folks here and agree with Mr. Russo and Mr. Altieri. A stop sign, okay, let me put my traffic engineer hat on. Stop sign isn't a traffic calming device. It's a traffic control device. We, under the manual on uniform traffic control devices, this is a 3-way intersection. We can put up a stop sign at a 3-way intersection once our police and our engineer investigate it and tell us which street is the through street and which street is not. We can put a stop sign on the non-through street. Doesn't require us to do a traffic calming study. Doesn't require us to do anything other than our engineer and our police chief to look at it and say, yes, stop sign should be placed on this street. And then it gets added to our ordinance of stop signs in town so we can write tickets on it. I mean, we have a 3-way stop at the end of or a 3-way intersection at the end of my street without any stop sign, Gallagher and Elgin. I'm not saying there needs to be one there, but it doesn't have to be a traffic calming process. It's just-
No. I didn't mean
Hey.
to say that that's what it was. I mean, Leonard and I were talking about the same thing, and we did that same for Morton and First.
Right.
I think if we just
Police
authorize
and the engineer, so
get the
it's
engineer and the chief to look at it and come back to us in the next meeting with a
Yeah.
recommendation on where.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a whole engineering report. I thought it was just the same idea that the police chief and the engineer looked at it, and it was because it was a three-way stop as well. I'm not saying that it's got to be a whole engineered
No.
thing. I just wanted,
And
consistency.
if they approve, if they give the okay to put it there, I think, Steve, we can have the sign erected and then amend the ordinance. The ordinance, at least it'll have law-abiding citizens stopping. It won't have the effect for enforcement. I'll leave it at that, but we can at least get it up before we have the ordinance amended.
That
Right,
is
right,
correct.
John?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, so if it's just a matter of deciding which of the three streets needs to have the stop sign, I think we as the board can just tell Steve to go have the engineer and the chief come back with a recommendation of where to put it, and then we can approve it at the next meeting. Say, yep, that's fine, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, that's fine. I think,
Do you need anything further from us on this then?
I do not believe so. I assume that you would want me to work with the solicitor if we come back with where the location is to also start the process for the ordinance change.
Yes, absolutely.
I throw a wrench in this, Mike, since you're the one who, or Supervisor Russo, since you're the one who has to have this on the agenda, was there other intersections in that neighborhood, or was it just, is this just the one that you're receiving complaints about?
Well, I can only relate to this one. I mean, pretty much most intersections in my neighborhood don't have stop signs. But this one here is pretty important, because what happens is everybody comes off of Goshen Road, coming from the west or coming from the south through this portion of the neighborhood. And it's like the major thoroughfare in and out of the neighborhood. So the other one is Echo Valley Lane, and Echo Valley Lane has stop signs at the three-way intersections at two places that I was told by some residents were added after the request was made, and they did whatever they did with the engineer and the police department. But those are already present because they were added several years ago, but there's nothing on this street at all.
Yeah, I don't want to complicate this any though. We have a written request for a particular intersection. I think I'd limit what we're doing at this point to that intersection, and we go on from there.
Sounds good.
Good.
We will move forward and we'll have a recommendation for you.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you.
That was easy. All right, next item on the agenda, 16.6, discussion of the revision to the litter ordinance. Mr. Catania.
Yeah, I've been asked to look at that again because of the wording. The wording in the ordinance refers to a person. And my suggestion was to expand the definition of person to include any entity. So it would include any business entity, any other entity other than just a person. So the citation can be issued to someone other than a person.
Could we take action now to authorize the advertisement of that?
Yes,
You could have that back to us rewritten at some point?
yes.
Would anybody like to offer a motion on that?
So
I mean,
moved.
if you're authorizing me to advertise the language to expand the definition of a person that could include any entity, then I can do that.
I would agree with that, yes.
So moved.
Is there a second to Mr. Partridge's motion?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to advertise the revisions to the 2020-03 litter ordinance. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 16.7, consider approving the annual agreement with PennDOT for mowing of the medians within Newtown Township's borders on Westchester Pike and Newtown Street Road as reviewed by the Township Solicitor and associated with Resolution 2020-109 in what? Okay, yeah. Mr. Neese, any explanation on this?
This is our standard mowing agreement with PennDOT, and just kind of so that anybody who's in attendance or anybody that's new that may not understand, PennDOT would cut the medians, I believe it's twice a year. The township has felt that would not be sufficient enough. And so this is a mowing agreement that allows us to take on not only cutting that twice a year, but we can do as often as we want beyond that, and that's part of our mowing contract.
And it's understood that PennDOT in this agreement reimburses us for their cost for the 2 times a day we cut it.
That is correct.
But unfortunately, that doesn't cover all of our cutting, but that's okay.
It doesn't even cover the 2 times that we do.
Okay.
$165 an acre is not going to cover much.
Yeah, we're all in agreement there. Would anybody like to offer a motion regarding resolution 2021-09?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second,
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 18.1. This is resolution 2021-09, the PennDOT mowing agreement, subject to the review of the solicitor. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That completes new business. Under old business, we have one item. This is consider approving the contract amendment with Delaware County Planning Department, extending the completion deadline of the zoning ordinance rewrite. I know you brought this up before, Mr. Neese, and we tabled it. I guess I'm just wondering, why do we even need to do this? I mean, they're going to still finish the zoning ordinance rewrite, correct?
I would think so.
I don't pretend to, I mean, based on our past experience with executing county agreements, I don't think they're very genuine with their execution of these agreements. So I don't know if we can't trust them to live up to the terms of the agreement. I don't know why we then approve it in the first place, as long as we get the ordinance rewrite done anyhow. I don't know what the point, if anybody should be asking for the amendment, it should be us, not them, I think.
I don't disagree. They sent it, gave it to us. You had asked that they sign it before you agree to it. I have received it signed back by Linda Hill, the head of the planning department.
But again, our experience with the county is with contracts has been that they're not going to live up to them anyhow. So I have a problem. I don't know, any other supervisors want to chime in on this? Because I know I just have a fundamental problem with contracts.
So you're recommending no action, John?
Well, I don't know what we need to do. We've already spoken with Sam. We had a public meeting. We had a discussion with him. We told him when we wanted things done. All this is doing is memorializing when things are going to be done. I just don't know that it needs to rise to the level of a contract.
There's also no penalty in there, right? In the event that they fail to perform, there's nothing, it's just literally, it's a memo.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm willing to leave it exist as a memo without a signature. I mean, I just don't know that it's a necessary thing that we need to take action on. That's just my point. And if our solicitor wants to disagree, that's fine. I don't know. I mean, I don't know we need to do anything with it.
I agree.
I agree.
Mr. Neese, it's been clear to them that our deadlines, you've conveyed to them our deadlines. They heard me yell at them for our deadlines. I don't know what else we can do.
Okay.
All right. So that's indefinitely tabled or just off the agenda altogether?
I will remove it from the agenda unless I find a reason to put it back on.
Thank you. All right. We have, we took care of items 18.1, 18.2, and 18.3. We have under item 19, no additional business listed. Item number 20, would any board member like to make any comments?
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman. I know Mondays are tough, to get all these agendas and all this. There's a lot of moving parts, but we got a revised agenda that had 2 land development requests. Just because of COVID, I mean, I don't, I have access to printers, but 4:30 is a little late, just with Zoom. So I just ask if we can, if there's a change to the agenda, if we could just get it earlier, or if it could be moved to another, or if it's something pressing. Just because I was on my phone, I don't have multiple screens from my computer. So I'm on my phone, so I look like I'm not paying attention. So if we could just try to, just try to limit what we add after maybe 4 o'clock to the agenda. I mean, I'm one person.
No, you're right.
But
You're right. I think honestly, once the agenda goes out Friday, that's the hard stop, unless it's something that needs to be done. If you are an applicant and you failed to do something, and again, this has nothing to do with Suzanne or the township.
Right.
It's people adding things last minute. if you can't make a deadline and the deadline is 5 o'clock on Friday when the agenda gets posted online, because not only is it ridiculous for us to be looking at these land development plans on cell phones and MacBook computers, but
It's for the residents as well. If
Bingo. Bingo.
misses it and, and if they were affected by Clover Lane or whatever, just as an example, I'm not picking that out, but it makes it hard to follow. It really does. So, and to Mike's point, that just happened on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so if we could just, unless again, if it's something that's really important and I understand, but I just felt like we weren't, the plans weren't updated and things like that. So
Right.
I'd appreciate the accommodation if we could do that.
Like important to me means like the snow plow that we need to maintain the
Yes.
streets, the
And the
security
doors being
system,
locked.
the security system. But I mean, in all reality, Tina, how many times have you ever gotten something approved on a Thursday and you're on 2 business days later on front of the board of supervisors?
Right.
It'll never happen in your lifetime.
Never.
Right.
It's not
Always
realistic.
next month.
It's
Right.
not realistic.
And in the administration, they're being customer friendly and they're and I understand. It's just, I think anyway, I'm done. So thank you.
Got it.
Your comments are well taken, and I think you echo the general feelings of the entire board. Mr. Neese, I like the idea of having Friday as the hard stop. When that goes out on Friday, that's it. Unless it's something life, limb, death, or legal, no additions to the agenda. Sorry, if the residents or the applicant or whoever wants to complain, tell them to call us directly and we'll be happy to tell them no.
Yeah, and if it's something that they feel like they needed to get on there and they can't proceed, then sorry, they blew their own deadline and they'll have to wait 2 more weeks.
We need to, at least in that issue, stop being so accommodating. Let's set a hard deadline at when it's published Friday. That's the end of it. That gives us at least the weekend to review it and go over everything and things like that.
And my frustration is when you have a plan, John, you know this, and Tina, you definitely know this. If it's not correct dimensionally and the direct dimensions are not on there, and we're looking at this, yet we're approving something, that's to be revised and sent in. And as Eileen said, there's no grading on it. Well, at the end of the day, if you're looking at this, you should have what you need. And I don't know that most people use a architect to do site plans. Mostly they use an engineer. So if this person doesn't even want to change the plan before they resubmit it for us to look at something and give them approval, I think that's unacceptable. I mean, I can't get away with that any place I go.
So noted.
No.
Good point, Tina. Good point.
Well said, folks. Anybody else would like to make any comments?
Yeah, where are we with the township arborist?
Oh,
You only have one applicant.
And
Yes.
it was from a company, not a person.
it was from a company, not a person. I did follow up with them today. I'm sorry, I actually thought I had gotten it on the agenda. That was my fault. I did get them on, I did follow up with the company today, and the person who would be doing it is an arborist. I do have some more follow-up questions I need to ask based on the proposal, because there's some fees in there related to mileage, and I want to make sure that we're only paying once they're in town and not all the way coming from where they're located.
All right, that's the one thing I saw. It's pretty far away.
Yeah, that was my concern when I saw it.
Yeah,
And I really wanted discussion. I apologize. I actually thought it had gotten added to your agenda on Friday. I had 2 concerns. One is that it was a group that's further away, and 2, we only had 1 applicant. I didn't know if you wanted me to try again and trying advertising in a different way.
where did you advertise it this time?
We advertised in the Delaware County Times like we always do, like we're required to. And then we had I thought we had sent it out, and I know George has been busy. He had shared with me, he had several that he was going to send it to. I have not confirmed that he was able to do so.
I mean, there's got to be other places we can advertise this, landscape magazines, nursery magazines, or organizations.
Yeah.
Maybe it'd be better, not that there's anything wrong with the folks that applied, but it's always nice to have a couple choices, I guess. And is it worthwhile, rather than coming back to the next meeting with a recommendation or discussion, is it worthwhile to try to advertise again in some of these other sources, publications, and get the word out in general to folks, to a more broad audience. I mean, I don't know, there's going to be a lot of arborists in Delaware County that read the Daily Times that are going to apply anyhow. So, I mean, maybe there's got to be nursery organizations and landscaping. The American, Pennsylvania has a chapter of the ASLA, the American Society of Landscape Architects. Maybe we could get something out through their network or something like that.
And also, why don't we talk to our neighboring towns? I don't know. I mean, sure, they have an arborist for outside service, but I'm sure they don't have a full-time arborist in any of those towns.
Okay,
Yeah. Do we need to authorize you to re-advertise or
probably because it would be an expenditure of funds.
is that a plan that everybody wants to do?
Yes,
I think we need to. We only have,
Motion?
yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'm hearing what you're saying is that you'd like me to advertise in some things that target where an arborist might see,
Yes.
and I will do so. And I will, as long as I'm advertising for the same cost that roughly that I would have at the Delaware County Times. If you're giving me permission, I'll do that. If it's going to be more than that, I will get that information to you.
I would think that advertising, like with the American Society of Landscape Architects, probably isn't going to be any cost. They'll just, you send them the RFP, they'll send it out to our membership or something like that, I imagine.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to offer a formal motion then?
I'll offer a motion. Steve, what were you thinking on the cost?
I honestly don't know. I'd have to go back and look at what we got charged. But
why
I
don't we
would
just
wanna
say not
keep
to
it
exceed
similar.
$1,500?
Okay.
1,500? Okay, so I'll offer a motion to for township manager to advertise for an arborist in whatever publications he thinks are best at a cost not to exceed $1,500.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Parker, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to re-advertise for the position of Township Arborist at a cost not to exceed $1,500. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Any other board comment? Okay, brings us to the last item on the agenda, public comment. This is comments from the public on any items that are not on the agenda. Is there anybody that's still in the 12 attendees that would like to make a comment on some items that are not on the agenda? If there is, please raise your hand. Not seeing
I
any
don't see any
hands,
hands raised.
we will then adjourn our meeting. Our next meeting is Monday, March 8th, 2021. Hope everybody has a happy and safe period between then and now, and we will see you then. Take care, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.